we wouldn't be here without plants. Life wouldn't exist without them.
This week, I'm very lucky to be chatting with Dr Noeleen Smith, Conservation Botanist from the National Botanic Gardens in Glasnevin in Dublin. Noeleen is currently working on launching the new National Irish Seed Bank. She is also continuing her work in invasive species control, island endemic species recovery, along with the conservation research into Ireland's rare and threatened fern and bryophyte species. Noeleen has been a great supporter of the Burren Nature Sanctuary, helping develop and label our collection of Burren flora. If you'd like to support our conservation projects, please visit our website to donate at www.burrennaturesanctuary.ie. Welcome, Dr. Noeleen Smith. Hi, Noeleen. It's lovely to talk to you in Dublin. How are you doing with the COVID-19 situation? And can you tell us a little bit about what's happening with the Botanic Gardens at the moment?
Hi, Mary. Yes, we're all in our lockdown mode here in Dublin. So the Botanic Gardens, unfortunately, we had to close the gates to the visitors a few weeks back. Before that, we were letting people walk around and kept our glasshouses closed. But with social distancing and weather, it was very popular. And in spring, it's absolutely beautiful at the moment up here. But unfortunately, nobody can see it this year. But anyway, there'll be more springs and there'll be summer to come, I hope, for everybody. And yeah, we're hoping to be open as soon as we can.
I've been following the social media posts and you've been doing some lovely things on social media. So you can follow the National Botanic Gardens on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Twitter, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So the education team have been busy researching and putting out pictures and going for walks around the place and showing you all the spring blossoms. Even though you can't physically be near them, you can actually, you can see them on the social media posts. Yeah.
Yes, I think there's one hashtag which I love at the moment, which is let the mind travel. And I think people, especially in cities and cooped up in apartments, they must be going crazy. And just to see the open space and nature and springtime happening must be really heartwarming for them. So the Nature podcast is really to give a voice for nature. And I was wondering if you'd like to tell us, how did you become a nature lover?
I'm very lucky to have had a rural childhood in County Kildare, so surrounded by boglands, which I absolutely adore, and just lovely habitat to see. And I suppose just plants. My gran was a nature lover, a gardener, so I suppose learned a lot of common names from her, like cuckoo spit early in the year, like all the just all the common names. And I just loved plants and flowers and being out there from being very small. And I've seen orchids, and I didn't realize at the time, but I probably got to see a lot more plants than now that I live in the city, that maybe a lot of urban children wouldn't get to see normally. So I was immersed from a very young age. And then we lived close by to Conservation Gardens, which is another fantastic exotic oasis, and kind of had part-time jobs in nurseries around the place. So I was just always surrounded by plants, So I made a career of it because, nothing else felt right. Being away from plants just didn't seem right,
Yeah, and I think it was this time last year you came to the Burren Nature Sanctuary. We were doing a walk, and I remember how excited you were with all the different mosses.
Oh, yeah, I love moss. Yeah. You have to kind of say that because people are always like, their first question when you say, oh, yeah, I know about moss, they always ask you, so how can I kill it? So it's one of our jokes is that, if you even mention the word moss, people are like, oh my God, how great, you know how to get rid of it. But no, I actually love the stuff. It's so spongy and lovely. And in Ireland, we're so wet here. So surprisingly for people, we hold, a huge variety of moss species here in Ireland, and we're well renowned for our mosses, even though, our wildflowers might grab a lot of the attention. Our most famous flora, because we're so wet, are the mosses and liverworts and stuff. So they're amazing. They slow down with flooding and everything. Our bogs are big moisture sponges. So without mosses, we would be, pretty flooded all the time. Yeah. So mosses do a lot for us here in Ireland. Soak up a lot of moss.
They're very important. And I think it's lovely when you can see the macrophotography of the mosses. You can really get a feeling for them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You need to kind of see them closer up. Most people would not even, experts would still go to, like, you still have to look at the finer detail in them, which I think is kind of amazing. It's not an instantation. You have to kind of work to find out the name of your moss. So I suppose I kind of like hidden depth. So they're one of their names is cryptogams, like hidden marriages. So nobody really, they can't really see the obvious features. You can't see the male and female bits as you can see in a flower. So in mosses and liverworts, they're cryptogams. So it's all hidden away. So you have to kind of go searching, which I kind of like. It kind of puts you on a bit of a, kind of an expedition to find out. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your enthusiasm about the mosses. Do you have a favourite plant or animal that you particularly like?
Well, one plant I seen down with you, Mary, which I think really fascinated me when I was a kid, and when I found out about it, was Arum maculatum, which is lords and ladies. So I think every kid in Ireland is like told to stay away, like they're poisonous. You see those luminous orange berries in autumn. Of course, they're instantly drawn to them as a kid. But more fascinating in the springtime, we don't often look inside. They have like a sinister, like a hood, something, so the hood is called a spade, and then inside there's like this one little spike, like a finger, and it's called a spadix. So basically that gets a bit warmer and emits a foul odor, and that attracts little flies from everywhere. And then when they crawl in and they're looking for this, the source of this delicious stinking scent, they crawl down past all these hairs, which point them just in one direction. And then they're down in a little chamber, and they're there to fertilize the plant. So they can't crawl back out. The hairs basically keep them trapped down there. They're one directional. So when you open those, I showed you down in your place, you had loads of them there last year. So when we opened it up, you could see all the little flies that were like mad for escape because they've been trapped down there by this arum, until they had their jobs done. So yeah, so there they were, like trapped in their little prison, like little, to sort of slaves pollinating away there, and they got no reward. They didn't really get anything for all their efforts after following this delicious scent. So yeah, so I love the tricks that plants play, and I kind of love these, these hidden things that we don't often kind of obviously see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really the magic of nature, isn't it? I mean, I've walked past the lords and ladies so many times, and until you actually showed me that, I had no idea.
I love all these tricks that nature has, it's like we kind of think as humans, we think, oh yes, we have this, we're the master in whatever our domain, but really we're just sharing this place. We wouldn't be here without plants. Life wouldn't exist without them. They've been around for a hell of a long time, and they've evolved lots of tricks to as many as we have to try and survive here.
Do you have a special plant in the Botanic Gardens that you particularly like?
Oh, I kind of like everything there.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I kind of go, oh, I like that, I like this. I suppose I've kind of been working in conservation. So recent things is to, as you know yourself, you set up as a partner with us now to try and develop maybe like a conservation collection of all our rarest plants in Ireland. And so to collect the seed and have a nice seed bank for Ireland. And you guys will be a nice little satellite site as well. So that's great. So together we can do a lot. Be starting this. Of course, we've been slowed down a little bit. I thought we'd be well ahead on our plans this year, but I suppose trying to save as many seeds as we can of our rare species so we have this bank for the future. So one plant we have been working on is a little sea cottonweed from Our Lady's Island down in Wexford. So we've been collecting seed from that. There's only 12 plants left in Ireland. Like that's, a bad for, something changes down there. That's an Irish species gone extinct. So I suppose I like to be part of what we can do together to kind of save our species or to make sure they don't go extinct on our watch, really. Yeah.
And another thing, we're partners with the Jardin Botanique de Soyer, and Noeleen kindly gave them a tour around the Botanic Gardens. And we, the Burren Sanctuary staff, went to their site in Mallorca, and they showed us their nursery of all the native plants that they're repopulating around the island, in places that have been damaged by chemical farming and such like. So we're trying to work towards getting a bank of these rare native plants and saving them and looking after them. So, yeah, it's very exciting to be working with you on that project.
Yeah, you have an amazing site down there. Yeah, it's very special. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So the next question was, do you feel spiritually connected with nature?
I think Ireland is a very magical and spiritual country anyway. We don't often think that we live surrounded by all these old Celtic, as down in Clare you have the dolmens, but there's so many our whole landscape is dotted with all these kind of, things. So we're immersed in it. So, and looking at a map, there isn't like a square kilometre where there isn't a holy well or a holy cross or a holy, something cooking bed or something. So we have a very ancient landscape. Some very magical places. I think Glenstall Abbey down in Clare, Limerick, it's just an amazing place. There's a whole glen down there. The Clare Glens are a wonderful, just green oasis. Yeah, so I've been kind of following Killarney fern around the place as well as another, and that's just grows in all these kind of magical little elfin places. So they're very magic places for me.
I think a lot of spiritual people have been attracted to the Burren as well. We had St. Quammen who came and lived in his cave for a long time up in the Burren National Park.
Nice place to live, yeah.
Yes, exactly, with nature.
Sounds like a good plan, yeah.
And he had his own little well there as well, which is, it heals back problems. Yeah, so you have to, it's quite difficult. You have to lean over sort of backwards and dip your back in it if you have a sore back, but maybe worth a try.
Worth a shot, yeah, that sounds good, yeah. I mean, it's just wacky. I just love our history and our culture and our landscape. And, we're intricately linked, I think.
I went up with actually the Spanish guys up to St. Coleman's Well last year, and we saw the frog orchid.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I mean, the orchids in the Burren really are a topic in themselves. They're just incredible.
Spectacular. There's just so many to be seen in such a short area. Drive around, you can tick off so many. I think 70% of the Irish flora is in the Burren region. So you're really living in the centre of it there. Yeah, it's astounding. And every time I go down, I'm astounded by it. Yeah, we're so lucky. Yeah. Such an amazing place here in Ireland.
Yeah, we take it for granted, and it is such a small area that you do worry if something happened that maybe some of them would be at risk. So the seed bank, which Noeleen's working on now, just starting up in the Botanic Gardens, is going to be very useful for the future in case of instances where we might lose a tranche of plants somewhere.
But I think obviously nothing replaces, what's out in the wild. I mean, ideally in situ is where you want, your plants and animals to be. That's where you want our nature to be, is out there and safe. But we just hold an insurance collection, but it's not, we don't even know, how to restore certain habitats. If you ask me to build a piece of the Burren, I might give you the seed, but it's still not maybe at the end of it. So nothing can replace the wild. We can hold individual species, but building out that whole habitat or that whole ecosystem is, we're not in that place. So it's not a simple thing. I think sometimes people think, we can dig this up because you have lots of seed of it, but it's not quite the same. We can't put it the way nature has built it for thousands of years.
I mean, the Burren has the heat, doesn't it, from the rocks, and then it has alkalinity and acidity and all these different elements that would be impossible to recreate.
Right, yeah, those little, on the limestone rock, you get these acid plants, these tiny little layers of humus that's acid, and on those, it's just so wacky. And then the deep grikes, and many little miniature habitats, miniature climates, all sitting there together, which is astounding. And then all your alpine plants with all your Mediterranean plants just in the same place. It's just, the complexity is just huge down there. But I mean, that's what makes it so amazing. That's why visitors come to see the place. I mean, I know oftentimes I talk to people abroad and it's always on, a plant person from abroad. They're always like, have you been to the Burren? I want to go visit.
Have you any inspiring nature books that you'd like to recommend?
Again, I have so many. I suppose I started reading things, Song of the Dodo. So I had a big interest in islands and the kind of wacky places. And Ireland being an island as well, there's always quirky things that are here or not here. We have this big link to the north of Spain in our Irish flora that doesn't, happen in the UK. So islands are fascinating. So there's one book about islands called Song of the Dodo. And it's very good. It just talks about rare species and species that are, why species go extinct. So just the chance things. So when you're down to very few numbers of a species, so like our cottonweed, if we're down to about 12 of them, like you have these stochastic factors or just chance or random things that can happen. Like a wave could wash them over. So these stochastic effects. So I suppose that really influenced me in choosing my career, basically trying to do as much as we can to save species as possible. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'll put that in the show notes for anybody that wants to look at that book. And I think the last time we were up at the Botanic Gardens, you were just building a new exhibition for the herbarium collection. So will that be ready when you open again? Or
oh yeah, we had a launch and an opening of it, and because we're kind of locked away and there isn't enough of us to kind of take people around individually and show them all our collections. So in our hallway now, we have sort of a video showing what we do every day. And then we have panels with information on some of the projects and stuff. And there's an interactive panel. You can take a quiz there. So it's a good way for us just to show what's going on behind the scenes at the Botanic Gardens, because there's a lot of kind of research and projects and specimens going back like, hundreds of years in there, and economic botany, all the plants and uses that people have had for plants in Ireland. We have like the National Shamrock Collection, all the shamrocks that were sold in Dublin from, for the last 100 years. So we just have all these wacky things in there because we are kind of like, anyone can ask us any question about plants anywhere, and we're meant to be able to answer you as part of our role. So I suppose it's just bringing out part of our what we do behind the scenes, a little bit forefront.
Yes. Well, we were so lucky when we had the Spanish group. Noeleen brought us around the herbarium and showed us some of the stories there and some of the projects that they were working on. And the enormous nut that had been washed into shore. I forget the man that was working on that anyway. It's so interesting. And the amount of stuff you have in the herbarium collection is just phenomenal. So the last question, Noeleen, I'll let you get back to your work. If you had a magic wand, what would you do for the planet today?
I suppose, the tropical rainforests is just my instinct to put those right back. These are the lungs of the planet, and it's been said before. And I just think one of the most shocking things I've seen recently was a map with model projection dates of when we would lose all our tropical rainforests. And some of it wasn't so far away. It was happening in the next, in the next 100 years. And I was just like, wow, how have we got to this state? How have we let this happen? And so without our lungs, I think we don't breathe so well. And I think we see how with this virus, how connected to nature we are. And definitely we cannot be using up all our wild resources. We cannot be consuming our wildlife like this. We can't be taking away their habitats because it will impact massively on our lives. And we're living through it at the moment. So as bad as this is, I kind of think, well, it's a bit of a nature's wake-up call for us all. We're all really connected now. Nobody exists in isolation, and we cannot take our wild species for granted anymore. We take away their homes. We are impacting species. We're coming together in a way that we've never come together.
No, we never expected it to happen. I'm 52 now, but when I was 15, I volunteered for Friends of the Earth in London. And Jonathan Porritt was there, and he's actually agreed to talk on the podcast. But I remember him in his office under piles of papers with maps of the rainforests. It's so frustrating. I mean, that's over 30 years ago, and he was desperately trying to do something then, and everybody's been working, and we seem to have no power over it.
Yeah. I do think it's economics, and unless we balance up, unless we take value in nature, like it's cheaper to buy tropical timber sometimes than that's ridiculous. Over 70% of the timber we use in the EU comes from the wild, comes from these tropical rainforests, and it's cheaper to do that. And that's a false economy, because that's not cheap really in the long term. So,
there's another guy, he's called Agent Green, and he's trying to save the ancient forests in Romania. He's on Facebook. And the lorries are just going in daily, and it's protected forests, casting it all out and selling it on the market. It's heartbreaking. So thank you for putting the rainforests back, Noeleen.
Yeah, well, I'm not putting them back, but I
Your magic wand, you are?
Yeah, my magic wand would, but I do work with a the EU as part of my role, scientific review group, which looks at trade into Europe and where we can stop trade that we know is just totally unsustainable.
Thank you so much for talking to us today, and I hope all the listeners go and visit the Botanic Gardens in Glasnevin when the restrictions from COVID-19 are lifted, and you stay safe and mind yourself.
Thank you so much, Mary, and I look very much looking forward to seeing the Nature Sanctuary again very soon as we can get out of all this. Yeah, want to see the lovely one again. Thank you.